Pierre P. Thomas was rushed to the ICU after suffering a heart attack, and within hours, rumors spread that he was dead. But P just responded from the hospital with a chilling video that finally shows what's really going on, and it's not what people expected. Let me break it down. It started the way most of these stories start now, with a post nobody could immediately verify. On the morning of August 21, an account called My Mixtapez put out a tweet that read plainly, "Quality Control co-founder Pierre P. Thomas had reportedly passed away after suffering a heart attack. No link to a hospital record, no statement from family, just a claim, a prayer hands emoji, and a name that a huge chunk of hip-hop fans instantly recognized. That's really all it took. Within minutes, the post was being screenshotted, quote tweeted, and dragged into group chats across the industry. Anyone who's watched how these things move online knows the pattern. The original post doesn't even need to be confirmed for the rumor to travel. It just needs a name people care about attached to the word died, and Pierre Thomas is a name people care about. He's the co-founder and CEO of Quality Control Music, the Atlanta label behind Migos, Lil Baby, City Girls, Lil Yachty, Quavo, and JT, among others. This is a man whose fingerprints are on some of the most streamed hip-hop of the last decade. So when his name started trending next to heart attack and passed away in the same sentence, the internet did what the internet does. It didn't wait for confirmation. It just started grieving, speculating, and arguing all at the same time. On forums like Lipstick Alley, threads filled up within the hour. Some posters were bracing for the worst, with one commenter writing that they were sending prayers to his children if true. Others were already pushing back on the reporting itself, with one person snapping that outlets needed to bring back journalism because the story kept shifting between died and hospitalized in real time. That confusion, dead, then hospitalized, then critical, then stable, is exactly the kind of whiplash that makes a rumor spread faster than a confirmed fact ever could. It didn't stop at vague sadness either. Some corners of social media ran wilder with it. On that same thread, one user claimed flatly that Twitter was saying he died from vaccine injury, a claim with zero sourcing behind it, but one that still got repeated and screenshotted like it meant something. Somebody else brought in a comparison to actress Hayden Panettiere's recent death, framing the timing as eerie, writing two celebrities die of heart-related incidents this close in proximity to each other, and calling it unsettling. None of this was coming from doctors or family. It was coming from group chats and comment sections, but by midday, it had become part of the story anyway. Meanwhile, actual reporters were trying to pin down what had happened. TMZ was the outlet that broke real information first. According to their sources, Pierre P. Thomas, the same executive who helped build the careers of Migos, Lil Baby, and City Girls, was hospitalized after suffering a heart attack. TMZ's sourcing said he was under doctor's care at a Las Vegas hospital, where he's in the ICU, and that family members were with him consulting with doctors on next steps. That was a very different picture than passed away. But because both versions of the story were circulating within the same few hours, plenty of fans didn't know which one to believe. Some had already moved into mourning mode, dropping black heart emojis and rest in peace comments on old Quality Control posts. Others were holding out hope, pointing to the fact that he was young enough, reported at 45 years old, that a heart attack, while serious, wasn't automatically a death sentence. It's worth sitting with how fast this moved. Within a single morning, the story went from a single tweet with no sourcing to a full TMZ report citing people with direct knowledge, to competing claims scattered across social platforms about what actually caused the medical emergency in the first place. Some threads speculated about drug use. One commenter on Lipstick Alley made a comparison to actress Hayden Panettiere's death, writing that it was the same thing Hayden Panettiere passed from, if you know what I mean. Another unverified claim with nothing behind it beyond speculation. This is the environment Quality Control found itself trying to manage, a mix of real reporting, half-true reporting, and total speculation. All moving at the same speed, all reaching the same audience of fans who genuinely loved this man's work and were scared for him. Layered under all of it was a wave of specific, personal concern. Commenters brought up his children directly, with one writing that he has all those kids to take care of. He needs to get better for them. That's not internet noise for the sake of noise. That's people who followed his career for over a decade suddenly confronting the idea that he might not make it through the week. By early afternoon, it was clear this wasn't going to resolve itself. The rumors weren't slowing down. The reporting kept evolving, and the only people who actually knew what was happening inside that Las Vegas hospital room were the medical staff and the family standing next to the bed. Everyone else was left refreshing timelines, waiting for somebody with real authority to say something definitive. That's exactly what came next. To understand why this story hit hip-hop as hard as it did, You have to understand what Pierre Thomas built and how long he's been building it. Thomas co-founded Quality Control Music with Kevin Coach K. Lee back in 2013. It wasn't an instant powerhouse. It started as an Atlanta record label trying to find its footing in a crowded market. What changed everything was speed and instinct. Lee approached Thomas to help found the company, and within a month of getting started, they had signed Migos, one of the biggest acts to come out of the Atlanta region this entire century. That single signing changed the trajectory of the label almost overnight. Migos didn't just become successful, they became a cultural force, reshaping the sound of mainstream rap for years. And once Quality Control had that kind of hit under its belt, the rest of the roster started filling in fast. Over the years, the label's artist list grew to include City Girls, Lil Baby, Lil Yachty, Rich the Kid, Stefflon Don, and many more. Lil Baby alone went on to become one of the defining rap voices of his generation. City Girls turned into one of the most recognizable female duos in the genre. This wasn't a label riding one lucky signing. It kept producing hits, year after year, under Thomas and Lee's direction. Quality Control didn't stop at music either. The company moved into management, publishing, film, and sports, turning itself into something closer to a full entertainment conglomerate than a traditional record label. On the sports side, QC built out a client list that included major athletes representing names like Alvin Kamara, Jarrett Allen, and Jorge Mateo. That's an NFL running back, an NBA center, and an MLB player, all under the same umbrella that started as a rap label 11 years earlier. On top of that, QC built out QC Films, producing short documentaries, music videos, and other projects in-house, giving the company control over its own visual storytelling instead of relying on outside production houses. The scale of what Thomas and Lee built eventually caught the attention of one of the biggest players in the global music business. In 2023, the South Korean company HYB, the entertainment giant behind BTS, and a growing roster of global acts, acquired Quality Control in a deal reportedly worth approximately $300 million. That wasn't just a payday, it was validation that a label built out of Atlanta by two guys betting on a group of rappers from the North Side had turned into something a multinational conglomerate wanted a piece of. Thomas talked about that partnership at the time in terms of ambition rather than exit. He described HYB as the perfect partners for Quality Control, saying they were coming together to take the company's story and work global, and pointing to HYB's leadership as entrepreneurs with a track record of finding talent and pushing it to the highest levels. He talked about needing partners who understood building something from the ground up while aiming for something much bigger, and about how much it mattered that HYB's leadership actually understood the culture QC had built and where it could still go. That framing matters because it shows a guy who, even after cashing in on a 9-figure acquisition, was still talking about the company as unfinished business. He wasn't stepping back, he was scaling up, and the timing of this health scare makes that context sting even more, because just days before he ended up in a Las Vegas ICU, Thomas and Coach K had been recognized publicly for exactly this kind of sustained influence. Earlier that same week, the pair were named R&B hip-hop power players by Billboard, an industry honor that essentially confirms what most people in hip-hop already knew, that Thomas remained one of the most influential behind-the-scenes figures in the genre more than a decade after starting the label out of Atlanta. That's the man the rumors were suddenly swirling around. Not a fading executive coasting on old hits, but someone who'd just been publicly recognized for still being at the center of the culture. Someone whose label had launched some of the biggest names in modern rap. Someone whose business decisions, like the HYB deal, were still shaping where hip-hop's business side was headed. When a name like that gets attached to Heart Attack and passed away in the same morning, it's not just fans reacting. It's an entire industry that has direct professional and financial ties to this man suddenly needing to know if he's alive. And that's exactly why Quality Control couldn't just let the rumors run their course. A company this size, with artists this prominent, with a $300 million acquisition on the books and a roster full of people whose careers are tied to the label's stability, needed to say something. The silence itself was starting to become part of the story, because every hour without an official word from the label or the family gave the death rumors more oxygen. Fans wanted an update, artists wanted an update, and industry insiders who'd worked with Thomas over more than a decade wanted to know whether they needed to start planning a tribute or start planning a homecoming. That pressure, A viral rumor on one side, a legitimate hospitalization on the other, and an industry standing in the middle demanding clarity is what pushed things toward the moment that actually settled the story down. Not immediately, not perfectly, but it's what forced quality control's hand. While social media argued over whether Thomas was alive or dead, the actual medical situation was unfolding in a specific place, at a specific level of severity, that took real reporting to nail down. TMZ was first to establish the concrete details. According to their sources with direct knowledge of the situation, Thomas suffered a heart attack and was under doctor's care at a hospital in Las Vegas, where he was placed in the intensive care unit. That detail, ICU, not a general ward, told people how serious this actually was. A heart attack severe enough to require ICU monitoring isn't a minor scare. It's the kind of medical event that puts someone's life at real risk in the following hours and days. Multiple outlets independently confirmed the Las Vegas location and the ICU placement. The Epoch Times reported that Thomas suffered a heart attack while in Las Vegas and is being treated in a hospital intensive care unit. Variety's reporting lined up with that too, describing him as under care at a hospital in Las Vegas, where he's being held in the ICU. When 3 or 4 separate newsrooms are independently landing on the same city, the same hospital setting, and the same ICU status, that's about as close to confirmed as breaking entertainment news gets before an official medical statement. What wasn't clear, and still isn't clear from any of the reporting, is exactly what Thomas was doing in Las Vegas when the heart attack happened, or what triggered it. None of the credible outlets speculated on a specific cause. That vacuum of detail is part of why the wilder online theories filled in the gaps with their own guesses, from drug use comparisons to conspiracy talk about vaccines. None of that carries any sourcing. What's actually documented is simpler and more human. A 45-year-old man in Las Vegas had a heart attack severe enough to land him in intensive care. TMZ's sourcing also gave a picture of what was happening around him in those hours. Family members were reported to be with him and consulting with doctors on next steps. That's a detail that matters because it tells you the situation was being treated with the seriousness of major decision-making. Not a routine checkup, but a family gathered at a bedside working through what comes next with a medical team. Other outlets echoed the same detail, describing family surrounding him as doctors determine the next steps in his care. That combination, ICU placement, family at the bedside, doctors mapping out next steps, is what made the earlier "he already died" posts especially painful once the real reporting caught up. Because the truth wasn't "everything's fine." The truth was this is genuinely serious, but he's alive and being treated. That's a very different emotional register than either extreme the internet had been pushing. It wasn't a hoax played for laughs, and it wasn't a confirmed death. It was a man in his mid-40s fighting through one of the more dangerous medical events a person can survive, surrounded by people trying to help him do exactly that. Age matters here too. At 45, Thomas fell into a demographic that's increasingly become part of a broader, uncomfortable conversation in hip-hop and black entertainment circles. A pattern some commenters online explicitly flagged, with one Lipstick Alley poster writing that it feels like heart attacks are happening to younger and younger people, and another noting more broadly that a number of Atlanta-based rap artists and industry-adjacent businessmen have faced serious health scares or legal trouble in the past several years. Whether or not that's a statistically fair pattern, it's clearly a fear sitting just beneath the surface of how fans reacted to this particular story. The sense that someone still building, still working, still only in their mid-40s could go from a Billboard honor one week to an ICU bed the next. It's also worth noting how little the label itself said about the cause. When Quality Control eventually did speak publicly, their statement pointedly avoided detailing what actually happened medically. As the Epoch Times noted, the statement did not directly disclose the circumstances for the health emergency. It was TMZ's own reporting, not the family, not the label, that filled in heart attack in Las Vegas and ICU as the actual facts. That's a common pattern with high-profile medical emergencies. Families and labels often stick to the broadest possible language: receiving medical care. Keep him in your thoughts, while the specific clinical picture leaks out through separate reporting built on sources close to the situation rather than an official press release. So by the time the confirmed details were out, heart attack, Las Vegas, ICU, family present, doctors working through next steps, the story had already split into 2 tracks that were both technically true at the same time. One track, a serious, credible sourced account of a health emergency. The other track, an unconfirmed, chaotic, occasionally conspiratorial wave of death rumors that had already convinced a chunk of the internet he was gone. Reconciling those two tracks fell to exactly one entity that had both the authority and the responsibility to do it: Quality Control Music itself. Eventually, the pressure built to the point where staying quiet was no longer an option. Quality Control Music put out an official statement addressing the situation directly, and it became the single most quoted piece of information across every outlet covering the story. The statement was direct about the core fact everyone needed to know. It read, "We want to clarify that Pierre P. Thomas is alive and currently hospitalized receiving medical care." That single sentence was doing a lot of work. It wasn't vague. It wasn't a thoughts and prayers dodge. It specifically addressed the alive question head-on, which tells you the label understood exactly what rumor they were trying to kill. WSB-TV in Atlanta, the local station covering the story out of the city where Quality Control is based, framed it plainly. The label had released a statement confirming Thomas was alive and receiving medical care after social media speculation suggested otherwise. That's about as close as a news outlet gets to saying outright that a death rumor needed to be shut down by name. The rest of the statement shifted tone, moving from clarification into a request for space. Quality Control asked that everyone keep Thomas and his family in their thoughts and prayers, and asked people to respectfully give them the privacy and space they need during this time. They closed by saying they deeply appreciate everyone's concern, support, prayers, and loving energy right now. That specific line, thoughts, prayers, privacy, space, got repeated across nearly every single outlet that picked up the story, because it was the only official words coming out of Thomas's camp. Rolling Stone ran it, Variety ran it, Complex ran it, XXL ran it, with a representative directly confirming to the outlet that Thomas is alive and currently hospitalized receiving medical care. When that many separate newsrooms are all publishing the exact same sentence from the exact same source, it becomes the closest thing to ground truth the public is going to get in the middle of a fast-moving story like this. Rolling Stone's framing captured the emotional whiplash of the previous few hours especially well, noting the statement came after conflicting comments across social media suggested Thomas had died. That's the label essentially acknowledging, without naming names or pointing fingers, that they were responding directly to a death rumor that had gotten out of hand. Variety's version of events added one more layer. A representative for Thomas told the outlet directly that the hip-hop mogul is recovering from the medical incident. That word, recovering, was a small but meaningful upgrade from the earlier receiving medical care language. It suggested forward motion. Not just he's alive right now, but he's on a path that's heading in the right direction. For an ICU patient recovering from a heart attack, that word carries real weight, even without a specific prognosis attached to it. XXL's reporting confirmed something else worth noting. As of their update, Thomas remained hospitalized, with the outlet stating that they had confirmed with his team that he remains hospitalized as of this writing. That framing made clear this wasn't a same-day discharge situation. This was a multi-day hospitalization, consistent with someone recovering from a serious cardiac event under close medical supervision. What's notable about all of this is what the statement didn't do. It didn't name the hospital. It didn't confirm the word heart attack directly. That detail came entirely from TMZ's separate reporting, not from the label itself. It didn't give a timeline for recovery or discharge. Quality Control kept its official language tightly controlled, clearly prioritizing Thomas's privacy over satisfying public curiosity about the specifics. That's a deliberate choice, and it's one that plenty of companies make when an executive's health becomes public. Confirm the core fact that matters most. He's alive, address the request that matters most to the family, privacy, and let everything else stay unconfirmed rather than feed the story further. Even with that restraint, the statement did its job. It effectively ended the "he died" version of the story across every major outlet covering hip-hop news. Within hours of it going out, headlines shifted from ambiguous, reportedly hospitalized, and allegedly language toward more confirmed framing. Outlets updated their pieces to reflect the label's direct word rather than secondhand rumor. WSB-TV's report, published the same day, could state outright that Quality Control had pushed back against false rumors circulating online about his death, rather than treating the rumor as unresolved. Still, one thing the label's statement pointedly did not resolve was how much longer Thomas would need to stay hospitalized, or what his recovery would actually look like once he left the ICU. That uncertainty is what carried the story into its final, still unfolding phase. The one where an industry built around this man had to figure out how to respond, and where fans were left waiting for the next real update, rather than another rumor. With the core question answered, alive, hospitalized, in recovery, the story didn't just end. It shifted into a different phase, one defined by an entire industry sitting in suspended concern while updates trickled out slowly. The reaction across hip-hop was immediate and widespread, even without a flood of individual celebrity statements attached to specific names. Multiple outlets described the same pattern: fans, artists, and industry peers sharing prayers and well wishes while waiting for real updates on his condition. One outlet described it as news spreading quickly across social media, with fans, artists, and industry insiders sharing prayers and well wishes as they awaited word on his recovery. That's a label executive whose reach extends far enough that the entire hip-hop ecosystem, not just his direct artist roster, treated his hospitalization as urgent news worth pausing for. It's worth remembering exactly why that reach exists. This is a man whose business decisions shaped the sound of the last decade of mainstream rap. Migos, City Girls, Lil Baby, Lil Yachty, Quavo, JT. That's not a small handful of acts. That's a roster responsible for some of the most streamed songs of the 2010s and 2020s. When someone with that kind of footprint ends up in an ICU, the concern isn't limited to a tight circle of close friends. It ripples out through every artist he ever signed, every producer who worked a session at a QC studio, every athlete his sports division represented, and every executive at HYBE who inherited a financial stake in his continued leadership after the 2023 acquisition. That last point carries its own quiet weight. HYBE didn't just buy a catalog. They bought into a company built substantially around Thomas and Coach K's relationships, instincts, and reputations. A health scare involving one of the two co-founders isn't just a personal tragedy playing out in public. It's the kind of event that has real implications for a company that, just days earlier, had both its founders publicly recognized as R&B, hip-hop power players by an industry that still saw them as essential to how the genre's business side operates. Amid all of this, the online conversation didn't fully calm down, even after the label's statement went out. Some corners of social media kept the speculation alive well past the point of confirmation, continuing to entertain theories about causes the label never confirmed and reporting never substantiated. Threads on forums kept circling questions that had already been effectively answered. Is he really okay? Is there more they're not telling us? Why won't they say what actually happened? That kind of lingering suspicion is common after a rumor gets as big as this one did. Once a large enough chunk of the internet has convinced itself of one version of events, a single statement, even one carrying the direct backing of the family and label, doesn't always fully close the loop for everyone. What we do know, based on the confirmed reporting across every major outlet that covered this story, is a fairly clear sequence of events. A heart attack in Las Vegas, placement in the ICU, family gathered at his side, working through the situation with doctors, a period of hours where the story split badly between real reporting and viral speculation, some of it wildly off base. And then a direct statement from quality control confirming he was alive, receiving care, and, according to a representative speaking separately to Variety, recovering. That word, recovering, is where the story stands, as of this writing, not fully resolved, not accompanied by a discharge date or a full medical rundown, but moving in a direction that matters far more than anything the earlier rumors were pushing. The man who helped turn a group of rappers from Atlanta into one of the defining acts of a generation, who built a company significant enough for a global entertainment conglomerate to pay roughly $300 million for a piece of it, who was being celebrated as a power player in his industry just days before any of this happened. That man is not the subject of a tribute. He's the subject of an ongoing recovery, with his family by his side and an industry full of people he shaped still waiting, still watching, still hoping the next update is as good as the last one. For now, that's exactly where things stand. A hospital room in Las Vegas, a label asking for privacy, and a hip-hop community that spent one chaotic day mourning a man who was in fact still very much fighting to get better.